feet and a light unto my path. Unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path.
Welcome to SearchLight, a survey through Scripture with Pastor Jon Courson. It is our desire to bring you a systematic study of the entire Bible, chapter by chapter, book by book.
It is possible that you were confused in your reading. For perhaps you were troubled when you read about Babylon being talked about once again. We left off in chapter 17 seeing Babylon destroyed, devoured. And now in chapter 18, Babylon is mentioned over and over, and it seems to be being destroyed once again. So what's the deal? And for you who were reading through this section and studying, perhaps it was a bit confusing, but here's the thing that you got to see. The Babylon of chapter 17 and the Babylon of chapter 18 are two different entities. Chapter 17 of Revelation deals with Babylon in a figurative sense. That is, it's a system, it's a false religious system that goes by the name Mystery Babylon. Because, as we talked about in our study last time, Babylon historically was the center of all false religion. So, chapter 17 talks in a figurative, symbolic sense of spiritual Babylon, which is headquartered in the city of seven hills, which is Rome. But chapter 18 is not dealing with a symbolic Babylon, but it rather deals with a literal city. Not a religious system, but a literal city. Chapter 18 of Revelation deals with economic Babylon. Chapter 17 deals with religious Babylon. Chapter 18 is political and economic, you see. And the difference is quite easy to see when you compare the two. In chapter 17, that Babylon, we see, was hated by the kings of the earth. Verse 16 of chapter 17. The kings hated her and destroyed her. But in chapter 18, this Babylon, the economic Babylon, is loved by the kings of the earth. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. So it's a different thing, you see. They hated the religious system, chapter 17, but they loved the economic city of chapter 18. Now, in this, we read that it has to be two different entities because in verse 1, it starts out this way. After these things, what things? After the things of chapter 17, the destruction of religious Babylon, that one world religious system that will form after the rapture of the church, when all true believers from every denomination are taken up into heaven, what is left will come together in a coalition, a false system that will be headquartered in Rome, and will then be initially in partnership with Antichrist and the 10-nation confederation of Europe. Initially, they'll seem to be working in tandem, but Antichrist and these kings will ultimately turn around and devour the religious system. And the religious system plays right into the hand of Antichrist and the European Union, the revived Roman Empire. And then that takes us into chapter 18. Once the religious system is devoured, it served its purpose. The Antichrist and the European leaders used it to gain power, to gain control of the reins of power over the world. Then they will, after they use it, they'll trash it. For you see, that's what Babylon is called, a harlot, a whore, in chapter 17. You use it, you abuse it, you trash it. That's exactly what's going to happen. But this other Babylon, see, when you talk about Babylon, not only was it the beginning spot for all false religions, but it was also the beginning of world commerce. Remember the Tower of Babel? They come together. All people come from everywhere in a united project to make a name for themselves, to build a tower whose top would reach to heaven. And in this coming together of all people, there on the plain of Shinar, you see, it was not only a religious thing, but it was also a political coalition, an economic endeavor. So Babylon has its roots in both false religion and in economic endeavorings. And thus, Babylon, talked about in chapter 18, is not the religious aspect of Babylon, but the economic aspect of Babylon. Now, here is an intriguing thing for you to think through. Is this Babylon that's being talked about in chapter 18? If you're saying, John, and I think you'll see this as we go through the chapter, if it really is a literal city, are you talking about literal, physical Babylon in Iraq? See, Babylon is located about 50 miles from Baghdad. It's been a rather unimportant place for many, many, many centuries until Saddam Hussein came to power. Nebuchadnezzar is Saddam Hussein's hero. Did you know that? Nebuchadnezzar, in fact, he has a coin minted where his picture, his face, is on one side and Nebuchadnezzar's image is on the other side. Nebuchadnezzar is his hero because Nebuchadnezzar was the last king of Babylon, which we call Iraq today, who was able to put his thumb on the Jew and control Israel. Remember Nebuchadnezzar, who built the monstrous statue there in Daniel chapter 2? Remember Nebuchadnezzar, who in chapter 4, he looked out over the marvelous city of Babylon, this city of splendor that was surrounded by two huge walls, so wide were the walls they could raise 6 chariots on top of the walls that surrounded the city. It was a fabulous city, and I don't have time tonight to go into all the dimensions and glory and splendor. Suffice it to say, the hanging gardens of Babylon are one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And Nebuchadnezzar, this king of Babylon, is there in the city. He looks out over his city, the splendor, the majesty, the architectural brilliancy. And he says, "My, look what I have done." Do you recall what happened then? He turned into a beast for 7 years. 7, isn't that an interesting number? Babylon, a place of incredible wealth and beauty, architectural glory, sophistication. Man, it was a happening spot. It was the happening spot in the world, you see. But then it was wiped out. Let me read to you from Isaiah, where it talks about Babylon and it being destroyed. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch a tent there, neither shall shepherds make their fold there, but wild beasts of the desert shall lie there. And their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there, and wild beasts shall cry in the desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, her days shall not be prolonged. And then in Jeremiah, I'll read to you from chapter 51, where again, talking about Babylon once more very directly. I will render unto Babylon and all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in the sight of Zion. I am against thee, O destroying mountains, saith the Lord, which destroys the earth. I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. And then, verse 26, they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Now, I shared that with you, not simply to take some time and read some obscure scripture, but to simply say the prophet Isaiah, the prophet Jeremiah, both were inspired by the Spirit to say Babylon is going down like Sodom and Gomorrah, disappeared off the face of the map, wiped out, desolate. Not even shepherds and their flock will hang out there. It'll simply be a place for weird birds and wild animals. And it will be desolate forever and ever. Now here's the interesting thing. Has this prophecy been fulfilled? And therein you have a great debate. There are those that say, well, when you look at Babylon, I mean, when the Medes and Persians came through and subsequent centuries passed on, it became nothing. True, but there was always inhabitants there in Babylon. Always a small village. Oh, never like it was in the glory and splendor in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, indeed. But nonetheless, there has always been small little communities in the area of Babylon. And then Saddam Hussein came into power. And 16 years ago, he commissioned a team of brilliant Japanese architects to come over, and guess what he has done? He has rebuilt Babylon. The palace of Nebuchadnezzar is complete. The gate of Ishtar is complete. The wall is pretty much getting done. Saddam Hussein, because of his obsession with Nebuchadnezzar, wanted to recreate the city of Babylon. And Hussein's desire and plan was to make Babylon a huge, huge place like Jerusalem for tourism, for people to be inspired about the history of Babylon, and to accomplish political purposes, and that is ultimately to make Babylon a center for all of the Arab world, and ultimately, if possible, for all of the known world. So, is that going to be the Babylon that's talked about here? Babylon. What does this mean? Well, let's take a look back in chapter 18. After these things, again, the destruction of religious Babylon, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations, there's a clue, all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. The merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So there's interaction, there's commercial intercourse. There is a fornication taking place here that involves all nations. Every nation has interaction with Babylon. Every nation is affected by Babylon. Every nation is dependent on Babylon. All nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Verse 3. Well, I heard another voice, verse 4, from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. This voice from heaven is talking to those who, in the tribulation, become believers. The church already taken up to heaven, but the Lord will still be saving souls. And in the tribulation, there will be a huge number of people who are converted to Christ, who finally get it and believe it. And here is a clarion call coming from the heavens. Stay away from Babylon. Come out. Don't get involved with her. Verse 6, Reward her even as she rewarded you. Double unto her, double according to all her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. What she has been doing, let it come back upon her own head. Oh, verse 7. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Interesting. Babylon, who's had interaction with all nations, and all nations have been involved with her in her fornication, now says, I'm a queen. I'm not a widow. I'm a queen. I'm not impoverished or in need of anything. And she says, I see no sorrow. Interesting, folks. It doesn't mean that there is no sorrow. It says she refuses to see sorrow. The implication is, well, Marie Antoinette. Remember what happened with the French Revolution? They came to Marie Antoinette and said, Your Highness, the people are hurting. There's no bread anywhere in the city of Paris. There's no bread. And she, in her out-of-touchedness, said, well, let them eat cake. She missed the point entirely. She, in her palace there in Paris, was out of touch and she saw no sorrow. And that, of course, was the problem that caused ultimately the French Revolution to do what it did. She saw no sorrow. And so too, Babylon says, I don't see any poverty. Babylon is so absorbed in her own delicacies, her own materialism, her own economy. She does not see the sorrow of people that are even within her own boundaries. Let them eat cake. I don't see any problem. Therefore, God says, verse 8, her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. She's going to be burned. God says, you claim to be a queen, you see no sorrow, but I look at you differently. The kings, verse 9, of the earth, who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, they're going to bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Standing afar off for fear of her torment, that is, not wanting to be tormented with the same torment that Babylon is being tormented with, they're going to stand away. But they're going to lament her that day. They're going to be grieved, bewailing, mourning, but standing off, saying, alas, verse 10, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. This phrase will crop up over and over again. In one single hour. What would be impossible, unthinkable, preposterous, crazy in John's day to think of a city, a big city, being destroyed in an hour? Impossible. Put yourself in John's sandals. This is blowing him away to see this vision of a city of unbelievable wealth and power and majesty burning up in one single hour, and people watching her and saying, I don't want to get next to Babylon, lest I be tormented with the torment that's tormenting her. I have the privilege of reading old commentaries occasionally. And it's so fun to read what the guys were writing about, 150 years ago, 100 years ago. Even then, the idea of a big city being burned and destroyed in a single hour, they said, we don't understand this, and certainly John must be using a figure of speech, for no city can be destroyed in an hour. Of course, now we say, no problema. I mean, we're in the age of nuclear weaponry that would do just that could destroy a city, could destroy a nation, could destroy the world in a single hour. And those places that receive the devastation of atomic detonation would cause those that are around to say, hey, we're not going there, lest we be affected by the fallout. We'll just watch Wolf Blitzer report it. And we'll just stay here and watch it on TV. But we're not going to go there, lest we be plagued too. The merchants, verse 11, of the earth shall weep and mourn. For no man buyeth their merchandise. Oh no. Not that they're saying, oh, these poor people in Babylon. They're saying, oh no. The world economy is doomed. With the destruction of Babylon, the world economy is wiped out. And then they go through this litany. Now watch this description. It's like a huge, big Saks Fifth Avenue. The merchants are weeping because, watch this. Now watch the departments here. Department number 1, the jewelry department. Gold, silver, precious stones, and pearls. Oh no. The jewelry department is no more. And then we move on to the next floor, the clothing floor. Fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet. And then home furnishings and kitchenware. Thyine wood, which was used for furniture, fine furniture. And all manner vessels of ivory, and all manners of vessels most precious from wood and brass and iron and marble. This is all home furnishings, you see. And kitchenware and fancy utensils. And so we come now to the fourth department, which is cosmetics and spices, cinnamon, odors, ointments, verse 13, frankincense, stuff that makes you smell good. So you see these departments floor after floor in this Bloomingdale's, just disappearing. And then we come to fine foods, gourmet, wine and oil, fine flour, wheat, beasts, and sheep. So the fine foods now, these are all exquisite delicacies, Epicurean kind of stuff, the foods that are listed here. And then we move to the sixth floor, which is automotive, horses and chariots. And the merchant, oh no, the horses and chariots, oh no, Broncos and Mustangs, and oh my goodness. And they're weeping. They can't believe it. The economy has collapsed. The whole world is affected. And then the basement. Slaves, more accurately, the word slave there is literally bodies and souls of men. It's the adult bookstore section. The whole thing crashes down. What I want you to see here is that not one of these things deals with life's necessities. They're all luxuries. It's materialism gone mad. It's pleasure-seeking. It's sensuality. It's senseless accumulation of stuff. Nothing in this list in these days in which John was writing deals with daily living, common stuff. These are all luxury items. In Babylon, the whole store collapses. The fruits, verse 14, that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee. And all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee. And thou shalt find them no more at all. So the merchants, verse 15, of these things which were made rich by her, all those that imported their stuff to Babylon, or exported their stuff, I should say, to Babylon. They were made rich by her. They shall stand afar off for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, saying, verse 16, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster, these are the exporters, the importers, all the company and ships and sailors, as many as trade by sea, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And now we have a problem with those that say, yes, Babylon, that Saddam Hussein has rebuilt, in the process of rebuilding. Interesting, by the way, in the Gulf War, Babylon, the restructuring, the rebuilding of Babylon was absolutely off limits for any military excursions by our troops or the Gulf War coalition. They were absolutely forbidden by our general, Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell and the powers that be. They were not to touch the rebuilt city of Babylon, no matter what. It's an interesting story. And interesting because a report surfaced that there was fear that Saddam Hussein would end up hiding out in Babylon, that he would leave Baghdad and go to Babylon. And there was a large debate, if indeed he ends up in Babylon, should we go after him? There is a report out, and I do not know if it's totally credible. Interesting, I don't know. But I do know that our troops were forbidden to attack this rebuilt Babylon. But here's the problem. Chapter 18, is it really the Babylon in Iraq? Because here the shipmasters, the people on the ocean, see the burning of Babylon. You cannot see Babylon from any ocean or sea. It doesn't work in that way, seemingly. Babylon is inland. It's not a seaport town.
If you would like to have this complete teaching, you may order one from our website at joncourson.com. You may also call us toll-free at 888-544-4858 and ask for the teaching from today's date. Again, that ordering number is 888-544-4858. You will also find on our website a variety of Pastor Jon's books, teaching packets, MP3 CDs, and other Bible study resources. Again, the address of the website is joncourson.com. SearchLight is a listener-supported ministry. We appreciate your prayers and support. May the Lord richly bless you.